All right, so it is take 2, part 3.
Okay, so then we go into the psychosexual theory for Sigmund Freud. He has 5 stages. 1 is the oral stage, 2 is the anal stage, 3 is the phallic stage, 4 is the Latin stage, and 5 is the genital stage. And these are broken up through the years. The oral stage is birth to 1 year, the anal stage is 1 year to 3 years, the phallic stage is 3 years to 6 years, the Latin stage is 6 years to 12 years, and the genital stage is 12 years and up. Sigmund Freud emphasizes the role of nature over nurture in the development of children. He maintained that inborn biological instincts drive the behavior, and the biological maturation guides all children through the 5 psychosexual stages. Yet he also viewed the nurture, especially early experiences within the family, so this could help influence the child as an important contributor to the individual differences in adult personality. So how his parents or her parents treated him or nurtured him or her could have a very big effect on their personality as an adult. At each of the stages, the ID's impulses and social demands come into conflict. So in this sense, harsh child rearing methods such as punishing children for things that are natural to them, like mouthing or sucking, having potty training accidents for preschoolers who have taken interest into their genitals and start early masturbation. This can heighten the psychic conflicts and the child's anxiety because they're always afraid that they're going to get in trouble for something. He also says that they experience anxiety and need to defend themselves if they're denied oral gratification in the oral stage, such as not being fed when they want to be fed, or being weaned off too early from a bottle or a pacifier, for getting in trouble for putting objects in their mouth, and so on. Through this fixation, they remain in this stage for an extended period of time because they're seeking that oral gratification, such as thumb sucking, and later on as an adult he uses the example of a chain smoker, and they're unable to move on to the next psychosexual stage as they should. Also, he says too much of an oral gratification can also pose a problem, and it makes the child have a hard time leaving the stage as well. Parents who are impatient and punish their children when it comes to the second stage, which is the anal stage, when they have toilet training accidents, can also delay children in the sense that they have the gratification of relieving themselves when they need to. It can give them high levels of anxiety and a personality that resists demands from authority figures because they're told to go to the bathroom on a schedule and they're not able to control their impulses. To help the child to achieve reasonable but not too much control over these impulses, according to Sigmund Freud, will help them. The phallic stage, he says, is an especially treacherous time as youngsters develop an incestuous desire for the parent of the other sex and must defend it. The boy goes through the Oedipus complex and the girl through the Electra complex. They seek the identification through the mother or the father. During the latency period, which is the 4th stage, the sexual urges tame, so this is from 6 to 12 years old, and they put most of their psychic energy into their schoolwork and their play and their friends. But adolescents are going to experience psychic conflicts as they reach puberty and enter into the genital stage. So the adolescents might have a hard time accepting their new sexuality, and they may re-experience conflicting feelings towards their parents that they felt during the phallic stage, and it may distance them from their families and their parents as a defense mechanism, because they're getting anxiety and anxiety-producing feelings. He believed that this psychosexual development stops with adolescence, so once they reach the genital stage, it stops, and that's what they have through adulthood.
Alrighty, next we have the defense mechanism, which this is an episode is when we think as adolescents that we are bad to the bone and we carry it to adulthood. So his thinking in our defense mechanism is actually a lifestyle of complete denial. The 4 denials that we go through is repression, regression, projection, and reaction formation. So Freud believes that, all right, remember this, okay? It's our defense mechanism. We all do it. Goes from the early stages in the repression by removing unacceptable thoughts or traumatic memories from consciousness. It's almost that we go through that repression. If we have any bad experiences through childhood, we repress those and go into a phase of thinking that it really did not happen. Usually later on in life, something will re-happen that will bring back that memory, and at that point you will either work through that, acknowledge it, or again just keep it repressed. And usually as we get into our possibly late 20s, 30s, into our 40s, as well into your 50s, you may at that point be able to bring that back up. On the nursing aspect of that, we know that with repression, memories can create a lot of sickness and disease in our own body. Okay, so the second defense mechanism is in the regression, which is retreating to an earlier or a less traumatic stage of development, such as a preschool girl threatened by her new baby brother may start reacting and revert back to her infant stage. So in that regression, again through traumatic, it is almost that defense mechanism in our ego that helps us get through these minor or major traumas in childhood. So it's almost like even as a kid, your ego will deny your experiences to keep you from the anxiety of the experience, and to keep you functioning through your childhood years, teenage, adolescent years, so forth. The third is the projection, which is very interesting, is when we see in others the motives we fear we possess ourselves. It's almost the things that we see in someone else that irritate you because it's something that you hold within yourself. So let me go back to that real quick. Okay, for instance, your husband or your wife charges the other spouse of being possibly jealous, when it isn't the other person that is jealous, but it is you yourself that is jealous, and you're projecting that onto your partner or whatever. So it's having characteristics in yourself that you're denying, but you project it on someone else and see it in them when it's actually in the mirror. The fourth is the reaction formation. The reaction formation in the self-defense mechanism is expressing motives that are just the opposite of one's real motives. As for instance, by his instance, is when a woman who unconsciously wants to gratify her sexual urges, but instead takes up a crusade against pornography. So it's almost denying your inner desires, whatever they are. So even though your conscience or your raising may project in your teaching that those are wrong, or you shouldn't have them, rather than in adolescence, adulthood, as you experience them, you will keep denying them and actually hold fault against it, rather than I guess learning how to experience it, acknowledging it, bringing it to the forefront, and then being free from it. Okay, that's his 4 mechanisms of defense. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to talk about strengths and weaknesses. Okay, Many developmentalists fought Freud for proposing a theory that is ambiguous, internally and inconsistent, difficult to pin down and test, and not easily falsifiable. Freud initially concluded that many patients have been sexually or physically abused during childhood, but had repressed memories of their traumatic experience. Overall, Freud claims about the role of sexual fantasy in child development have not been received much support. Psychologists certainly appreciate that sexual abuse in childhood can contribute to later psychological problems. Moreover, it is still debated his therapeutic techniques planted thoughts in their minds and created false memories of abuse. Although many of Freud's specific ideas have been difficult to test or have been supported by research, when they have been tested, many of his theories stood up well, have profoundly influenced theories of human development, personality, and psychotherapy.